Power up.
Yes, people, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to revisit my old friends, the Amiga 500 Plus, because I want to make a few changes to this machine. It's been quite a few years since we last had a look at this, and I want to replace the case on this machine as it is damaged in a few places, and it does have a gaping hole in the top, which I cut in the machine itself, which I'm not happy about. So I've got a new shell for the Amiga. Well, it's not new, technically. It's off an old Amiga 500 Plus, which has probably had the leaky Volta battery of doom and has been salvaged, but it's in much better condition in this case. It doesn't have all the cracks in, and it doesn't have a big hole in the top that I made myself. What I also want to do is remove the Gotek drive from the machine and replace the internal floppy drive back in the Amiga, because I've got a new method for using my Gotek drive. We're going to put it in an external caddy itself, which means I've got to somehow mount the drive select switch on the outside of the Amiga without damaging the case and get everything in there. But we're going to have a bit of fun with this because there's a few bits and bobs I want to do, plus there's a new upgrade inside there which I want to show you that I've added in the last few years, because I was having nothing but trouble with my old terrible fire card. It just wasn't working with this Amiga as it should, and it kept resetting after so long. So I put a different card in which is much better. I also have a flash card in there, which means I can play Workbench from the boot up. I've got WHDLoad games on there as well. So there's no need to have the Gotek drive internal to the Amiga anymore. So we're going to put it on the outside because I want to renew some of my old discs. Plus, I don't want to make another great big hole in this Amiga case. So the first thing we have is this lovely external Gotek drive case for the Amiga. It's printed in almost the same colour as the case, which is nice. And your Gotek drive will slide in the front, and you have the cable coming out the back, plugging into your Amiga, so we can have this all externally. So, say for example my Gotek drive was in this, which it currently isn't, just slide that in the front, and it leaves you all your controls and your screen right facing you on top of the Amiga, and it looks a lot better than that little white box I had sat on top of the last one with the screen in. Also, to complete that, so we can finish wire it in on the outside, we've got this cable which will plug straight into your Gotek drive, and then this will plug into your external floppy drive port on the back of the Amiga. So the idea is to get all that in there together, somehow mount the drive select switch somewhere on here so that I can switch this between DFO and DF1 should I want to load games from this, or just use it as a secondary drive, which is the idea I'm having, because I want to recopy some of my old Amiga discs that no longer work. I do have discs where, you know, disc 2 or 3 doesn't work, and I'd love to copy them from the images that I've got on the Gotek drive just so I can play them off a floppy if I want to. But that is the idea with this one. That'll sit nicely on top of the Amiga facing you with the dial on the front and all the information. A lot better to see than we had with that little white box that we were using before. I will put links to both these items in the video's description, because as of the date of publishing this video, these items are still available to purchase on eBay. And the cable itself was put together by the art director of Amiga Addict magazine, Josh Kelly, which is really cool. But yes, I'll pop those links in the description for anyone that wants to try building this themselves. And finally, we have a lovely new case with no hole in the top and no cracks on that we're going to pop the Amiga 500 Plus into. And it has lots less yellowing on it than my old Amiga 500 Plus case did. So it will look a lot better once it's all in there, hopefully. So we'll start off by removing the screws from this Amiga. Luckily, it's only got 2 in for some reason, because I lost a lot of the screws. And I opened it up that many times I didn't want to put half of them back. So this will be easy to remove. I'm sure there's only 2 or 3. There's only 1 in the front anyway. I might save these for the new case, I'm not too sure. I think that comes with a full set of screws. Yep. We only have 3 screws in this case. This last one doesn't want to come out. Yes, he does. Before we pop the top off, just got to remove these from here so don't pull all the cables out. Pop that through, and I'm sure I hot glued that on, which I did. I might have to just remove the hot glue, which is nice and easy to do. go. Just slide the screen out. Pop all this through the case. Got to be careful while I do this as well, because I've got the drive select switch sticking outside of the Amiga here, so I have to push it off sideways. And look at that horrible hole. I'm so sorry to the entire Amiga community for that. That is awful, which is why I'm replacing this case. So since we last looked inside this Amiga, I have replaced my graphics card with the TF536. I was getting a lot of crashes with the other card, and for some reason I couldn't get Workbench to install on a flash card, even though I'd upgraded my kick ROM to 3.1. So now this one has a fully working copy of Amiga Workbench installed on here, along with lots and lots of WHDLoad games, which is why we don't need the Gotek drive internal to the machine anymore. So first things first, we'll just remove the keyboard so that's no longer in the way, because that does tend to get in the way of everything inside this Amiga. So now that the keyboard's out of the way, let's get the Gotek drive out of the Amiga. I'm going to reuse this caddy because I do have another A500, which I want to just have a Gotek drive in and nothing else, keep it quite vanilla. So this will get reused in another A500. Let's not also forget to unplug these cables. Remove my drive select switch. That's going to be one of my headaches, I think. I don't know if to mount it externally on the back of the case. Don't really want to put any holes in the new case, but I might have to make one just to put the drive select switch in. I've lost the washer there. We'll just get that guy out of the way at the moment. Pretty sure as well that I screwed this in from the underside, so this is going to be a bit of a mess, guys. Yep, I did. So hopefully we can take this out without everything dropping off inside. That should have it now. Yep, and everything's fell off. But that's our Gotek drive out. That's the first thing we need. So we'll just get the Gotek drive removed from here. I'm going to leave everything else in place, so I don't have to remember where all the plugs go. Come to think of it, these look like a few of my Amiga case screws, which explains why they went missing when I did my original modifications. I don't think this Gotek drive caddy came with any screws, so they can be reused in the case. Our LED looks a little bit sad though, so we might have to get this guy into a better position. So this is the original case that the Gotek drive came in. I have off camera just put the screen in with a bit of hot snot. I wanted to get that as straight as I possibly could. And yes, I made a nasty hole in the top of this, and I can't remember why I did that. I really can't. But the cutouts in the back are there for a reason, because they're for the cables that feed from the Gotek drive. So we'll pop it into this case now. The glue seems to have dried, and I've got that screen in as straight as I can. So we'll just get this guy in. Set down all snug. And just pop that screw in to hold it in place. Not forgetting to plug our screen in as well. So that's all done, and we've got the little speaker underneath there as well, so you can hear the drive when it's accessing a disk. We'll just get our selector switch back in the front. That should be everything in there now, which looks rather neat. As neat as can be with that giant hole in the top anyway. So we'll just make sure all these cables are fed correctly as well, because the reason I made the cutout was for all these cables to fit where they were going. See, just so they feed through there. It's a bit butchered, I know. You'll tell me in the comments how butchered it is, but we won't be able to see this once it's all inside the case. I'm going to make sure there's no cables in the way through these holes as well, because I hate to screw the case together, which I'm looking we do have. Yes, we have no cables in the way of the screw holes now, so just pop the screws back in. Well, I've got two there. Luckily there was a screw post there which I probably cut out, which is why it's going to be a bit floppy, but that is not a problem. That's not a problem at all. So now that's all done, we're just going to pop this cable adapter on the back of the drive. It should slide nicely onto all these pins. Nice and snug. And then we can slide this assembly into the external case, hopefully, without too many problems. There we go, plugs through. Oops, all the cables underneath that lip. And that should just slide nicely into there. So now that's all done, we'll get this put to one side and we'll get the Amiga moved from the old shell into the new one. Lovely. So first things first, before we take the Amiga out of this case, we've got to remove the trapdoor memory, because that won't get past this lip of plastic here. So we'll just get this guy out first. Give him a wiggle and now it should pop. There we go. We'll put that back in later. So hopefully I didn't leave too many screws in here. It doesn't look like I did, to be perfectly honest, because the Amiga clips down into the case itself. I think there's one or two here either side of the expansion bay on the side of the computer. So we'll just get these two out and see if anything else needs removing. Then we should be able to lift this out, drop it in the new case and carry on. So now we've removed the only two screws that I could see in the case, which I think is there, because there are some that go in each of these pads here, which I didn't reuse once I dismantled it the first time. Everything should just lift out, except for this bit at the back here. There we go, there's nothing holding it in, just needed a good wiggle to get it out of the case. Just pop this to one side for a second. Bringing out a nice shiny new case. Pop this guy straight in. Then we should just be able to push down here to get it into the clip, like so. So that's all snug now, so we'll just pop our trapdoor memory back in. Nice and snug. We'll get this piece back in. So I ran into a few problems. The first problem was that the button has come off my floppy drive. So what I've done is salvaged the drive from another Amiga 500 where the button still works, and that's the Amiga I'm going to be putting the other Gotek drive into, so no loss there. The second obstacle I ran into was where I was going to put the drive select cable. Now I wanted to have it in the box on the top to switch, but it's just going to be too much of a mess. So I made a neat little hole in the back to pass that through. I didn't want to destroy the case in any way, but that is not going to be visible, and the drive select cable can then fit underneath the floppy drive straight through the case quite neatly as well. So I don't mind that. So first things first, let's get this in before we put the floppy drive in, because this is going to sit underneath the floppy drive. So we'll just get this popped through the hole in the back of the case. which is just the right size. Make sure to get that nut washer on. It's very fiddly. There we go. Fits lovely. And you can see that sits just underneath the drive, so nothing is in the way at all. One thing I've just noticed though is when I put the floppy drive back on top, this cable was interfering with the bottom of the drive mechanism, the part that spins around when it's reading your disk. So what I've done is just take that flat to the bottom of the case to prevent that from interfering with the drive mechanism. Then I've just rerouted that a different way through the case. So now that's out of the way, let's get the floppy drive back on. Now the only thing we have left to do is to drop the keyboard back in and get the case on so we can test this out. I have gone back to the original keyboard that came with this Amiga with the two white keys on, because the floppy drive light on the other one wasn't working. So now we've got a floppy drive in here. I suppose it'd be nice to see if it was accessing the disk. Look at this case, guys. Oh yes. Just got to make sure it doesn't interfere on the end there with the SD card reader. Hate to get that trapped in the case. I'll just flip that over and get it zipped up, guys. Now that we've got the case installed, we just need to get that Gotek drive fitted to the back of the Amiga, and then we can power this on and see if everything works. Now I have had to remove one of the pegs from the back of the disk drive port simply because the plug on the back of this Gotek drive is ever so slightly wider than what we had there. It has got two pins missing on the end, so it does have the correct pin out for the disk drive, so it should still fit nice and snug now I've removed that pin. The greatest thing about this Gotek case is in order to secure it to the top of the Amiga, you just line these little lugs up here with the vents across the top, push down, and everything just fits nicely. So now we just need to bring in some power for the back and get that switched on. Pop in a backup of a game made by somebody in the 90s, probably. Might not have been me. And our DFO drive is working. So let's quickly flick that over and see if we can switch between this and the Gotek drive. And we'll flick that switch on the back to change drives, power it back on. Now this drive should function as DFO. So the main reason I did this now is that I can move some of these images over to my floppy disks that no longer work. Some of my disks are old and corrupt and don't work correctly, so this is a great way of backing up my old disks again. So if I want to play from floppy, I can. But let's plug this all in now and see if our Amiga Workbench installer survived all this work. So this is my main Workbench screen, guys. This is a Workbench I put together myself. Spent the last couple of months learning how to get a good build of Workbench 3.1 running on my Amiga, and being able to see a card with a larger capacity of 4GB, which was an absolute headache to get around on its own. But there's plenty of tutorials out there on the internet for anyone that wants to try this out on their own Amiga. But as we can see here, both drives, DFO and DF1, are now showing up on my Workbench screen, which means I can copy games from my Gotek drive to floppy disk and vice versa, meaning I can repair all those childhood discs I've got laying around in a box that no longer work. But what I'm going to do now, guys, is I think I'm going to go away and load a WHDLoad game up and have a play. So what a better game to try out to finish this video off than the game we've been trying the floppies for, Dune. It's one of my absolute favourite Amiga games and is on my must play list of games, guys. Honestly, it's one of the most recommended games on the Amiga. Absolutely love it. So take care, guys. I hope you found this video helpful, and we'll see you in the next one.